Here's a fun thing to notice about the Mrs. Hawking series. Our shows often contain narratively important items that further the story or say something about the characters and their journey. Many of these items end up on Mrs. Hawking's clock shelf, and some have been featured on our posters and promotional artwork. In the first show, Mrs. Hawking finds her late husband's service knife, a kukri, and uses it in a reconnaissance mission to gather intel about a kidnapped child.
The Colonel's old service knife. Leaving it was one of the few useful things he ever did for me.
Despite her feelings about the Colonel, the kukri becomes her weapon of choice, and we see her wield it throughout the series, continually reminding us and her of the turbulent nature of her relationship with the Colonel. But Reginald isn't the only character Mrs. Hawking has a troubled relationship with. In Vive at Regina, we learn of Mrs. Hawking's feelings toward her namesake, Queen Victoria.
I might have thought you'd admire her.
The Queen! That factory for children bent on casting her shadow over the whole of the earth.
Madam!
The letter that Team Hawking receives at the end of the show, sent by the Queen herself, is a tangible reminder of systemic oppression within society, and of the tenuous position outside the laws of society that these characters have placed themselves in so that they can do good. Doing good often comes at a physical cost for our heroes, too. Bass Instruments is a fair play murder mystery centered around a ballerina who used laudanum to continue dancing despite significant physical deterioration. This storyline parallels Mrs. Hawking's arc, as she begins to grapple with her fear of aging, and who she is if she can't maintain the physical strain that being a hero places on her. In Bass Instruments, the laudanum bottle signifies the struggle our heroes have with their own mortality and the difficult choices they have to make. Some of those choices, though, are more difficult than others. The sextant in Gilded Cages is not only an artifact from Mrs. Hawking's past, but as Elizabeth tells us,
it's called a sextant. Seamen use it to measure position.
That this device is designed to help mariners see is ironic, given Mrs. Hawking's difficulty seeing clearly the people closest to her, and feeling that Reginald didn't see her for who she was.
He didn't love me. He never knew me!
How the characters treat each other, and the choices they make in how they treat each other, becomes a major theme in the second trilogy. And what import might the key items in Mrs. Frost, Fallen Women, and In the Bones have? Well, come to see the live performance of In the Bones at Arisia this January, and the virtual debut of Mrs. Frost on our YouTube channel, and see for yourself.